Well, next tonight, to a community that says they face prejudice at every stage of their lives.
Yeah, many who are trans or gender diverse say they face daily discrimination and are often the target for crime.
Figures show there were more than 2,500 victims of transgender crimes.
Almost 90% of those asked failed to report that experience.
Out of those who did, almost half were dissatisfied with the response.
Well, this week marks the first ever Trans Plus History Week, where we look at a community whose story can be traced back centuries. Ostridge has this special report.
Germany, 1933. The burning of the books is a moment in history seared on the minds of many. But a lesson most will never read about in books is what happened exactly 91 years ago today. The world's first Trans Plus clinic in Berlin was occupied by Nazis, and its entire library was set alight and destroyed.
So the Institute of Sexology was a very kind of early research centre. That week impacted the community hugely. When we talk about trans people kind of socially and politically, there's this idea that maybe trans people are new, but actually there was so much trans history collated in the Institute of Sexology that was just lost.
Queerlit is the UK's largest LGBTQ+ bookshop, right here in Manchester. It's piled high with works of thousands of queer and gender diverse writers and creatives. A regular customer here is Arlo. They came out as non-binary as a teenager. That means they use they/them pronouns. But their journey hasn't always been easy.
I knew that I was trans, and that was like, I thought, I've got to get over this hurdle where I have to come out to everybody and tell everybody. But then it was the medically transitioning part where I'm like, I'm going to have to jump through these hoops essentially to get the gender affirming care that I need.
How do you feel knowing that there's so many other people out there who are going through the same situation that you went through, not being able to go to a doctor and say, this is what's happening, please help?
It's just really sad. Had I not been able to access any of my affirming healthcare privately, I don't know if I'd be sat in this chair talking to you today. People aren't even on waiting lists, or they are on a waiting list but they're 10 years long for their first appointment. If I were to need routine NHS care, I wouldn't be waiting 10 years for my first appointment. So why is it the same for gender affirming care?
And it's those rights Arlo and Rosie fight for day in and day out. They run Trans Pride Manchester, leading thousands of protesters through the streets on Trans Visibility Day in August. Professor Whittles fought for trans rights for the last 5 decades. He was the 13th person to receive hormone therapy in the UK.
Spoke to my mum first. My dad walked in the room and that's what we were talking about, told him, and he said, well, we've been waiting for this since you were 2.
Professor Whittle appeared on Granada Reports in 1996, a time when trans people had no laws to protect them.
Nobody has an easy life of it. It's not a choice. Nobody makes a free choice to do this. It's this or you kill yourself.
What is your reaction to seeing this 27 years later?
It's a shame we're having to have the conversation again. You watch it and you ask, hold on a minute, that was nearly 30 years ago. Why am I having this conversation now? I thought we'd got past it. But, you know, as I keep saying to people, we're here and we're not going anywhere.
More than 20 years since the Gender Recognition Act, and hate crime towards the transgender community are at a record high.
I was sitting at home reading that people were going to come and try and kill me, that people were making threats on my life, people were saying we're going to find out where you live.
Actor Felix Mufti is known for the Netflix series Sex Education, but his heart lies with his theatre company, which encourages and supports LGBTQ+ people who are interested in the arts.
I work with a lot of young people who have developed really destructive self-behaviour patterns because of what other people think of them. You know, a lot of trans children have took attempts on their own life who have really done awful things to themselves because of what other people say to them. And now that there's more of a conversation around transness and we're kind of being fear-mongered and we're the kind of, you know, political punching bag at the moment, when the reality is transness has always been here. It's just our history has been eradicated.
Trans Plus History Week ends on Sunday, but the community hopes the untold stories of gender diverse people will continue to be heard. Lauren Ostridge, ITV News.